story of Abraham. Abraham has a child called Ishmael with Hagar, because Abraham was unable to have children with his wife Sarah. Sarah suggested, have a child with Hagar, and they give birth to a child called Ishmael. Then, miraculously, Abraham and Sarah are able to have a child, and they do have a child later called Isaac. Isaac and Ishmael are an interesting study, because they would both be progenitors of nations to come. Ishmael is the father and ancestor of the Arab and later Muslim world. Isaac, the ancestor and father and patriarch of the Jewish world. And the plot thickens, which we'll talk about in coming weeks, because Isaac would have two children, twins, Jacob and Esau, and Esau is the ancestor and father of Rome, of the Western Roman Christian world. So we're focusing on what is this week's chapter that talks about Isaac and Ishmael, but you see how the plot thickens, how it broadens. And when you can understand that they were in conflict, it can help us understand how their children and descendants that ultimately became nations of their own have conflicts, because they did begin with ideological, spiritual conflicts. So that's what we're going to talk about right now. This feud between Ishmael and Isaac, half brothers, both shared a father called Abraham, two different mothers. And you find that Sarah, the mother of Isaac, tells Abraham, Ishmael is a bad influence on Isaac, I want you to send them away. And he does. He doesn't want to, but he sends Ishmael and his mother Hagar away. God protects them, but they were sent away. What was the conflict there? And it doesn't really state it. It just says there was something going on. But when you look into the soul, the spiritual and mystical and esoteric teachings, you discover Abraham had done something revolutionary, pioneering. Abraham introduced the idea that life is not egocentric, but God-centric. In simple English, we're not here just to serve ourselves. We're here to serve others, to serve a higher cause, to experience a higher state of consciousness, and to connect to a higher reality. This was a pioneering and trailblazing approach to life, because it countered everything that was going on in his world. The pagan world focused far more on control and power, materialism, and success on that level. You can say it's not surprising, we still have that conflict, don't we? But Abraham did introduce the father of monotheism, the father of all nations, became the patriarch, became the prophet.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are? It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean,
Really?
maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards, they can't live here.
No,
because
I've
you've just
never
told
said,
me
that
they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abram.
They're the descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah, that's
and
what
my question
Zionism
was,
is.
on what basis do they have the right?
Yeah.
And you said because God granted it to them.
And I also said because that there should be a land where Jews can live in peace and safety.
And I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You said
I didn't
it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm confused.
I think I was very clear.
Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense
ancestrally,
how do we know that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point.
But
So
if
how do
there
we
is-
know that he
but
has any
if they
connection
are
to this land at
Jewish,
all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language,
But
the
he
Bible,
doesn't-
the land,
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
Hey guys, welcome back to Global Info with T. And it's good we're having what we're having, the discussion we're having, the kind of news we're having, because trust me, guys, today's topic we're talking about who are the true descendants of Abraham. And Tucker Carlson has brought up a question about a DNA test. So what do you think about it? Because the truth will definitely unfold itself. It's time for everyone to face the truth. I know the truth. I don't know if you know the truth, because at the end of the day, the truth sticks forever, and time itself unveils the real truth. Let's watch videos from other people and let's see what they have to say about who the descendants of Abraham truly is. Subscribe.
As an ex-Muslim, I was taught many lies about Islam growing up, and one of the biggest ones is that Islam is an Abrahamic religion. Islam claims connection to Abraham, but there is absolutely no proof of any whatsoever. No ancestral or historical connection. First, Muslims say that Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham's son, Ishmael. There is a hadith of Muhammad making this claim, but there's no genealogy linking him back to Ishmael. His companions say that he stopped his lineage at Adnan. He actually discouraged looking for any overly extended genealogies, probably because he knew he wasn't actually a descendant of Ishmael. And there is no hadith of Muhammad himself naming Adnan. And there is no objective historical, archaeological, or documentary evidence that Adnan was a descendant of Ishmael. The only sources we have are from Muslim scholars, and even they admit that they have no genealogy going back from Adnan to Ishmael. Any genealogy you see online is post-Islamic apocrypha. A well-known report from Ibn Abbas, who was known as the greatest genealogist among the companions, said that between Adnan and Ishmael, there were 30 ancestors who are unknown. And even if Muhammad was a descendant of Ishmael, it wouldn't even matter because the covenant was made through Isaac, not Ishmael. So that one is clearly debunked. The next connection that Islam tries to force back to Abraham is that he and Ishmael traveled to Mecca and built the Kaaba there together, when that is literally impossible. Genesis places Abraham in Ur, then Haran, then Canaan, with a brief stay in Egypt. After Genesis 12, he remains in Canaan. The text never mentions Arabia or Mecca in connection with him. And Mecca was 1,500 kilometers away. You can't even see it in this map because that's how far away it is. Given how long that journey would have taken, there would have had to be some sort of written account of that. It would have been a major life event. The Bible says that Hagar and Ishmael were sent away from Beersheba, and the Islamic hadith says that this is when Abraham went with them, and Hagar and Ishmael settled down in Mecca, while Abraham went all the way back to Canaan. But they left Beersheba with one skin of water, on foot, and Ishmael was an infant according to the hadith. So you're telling me that a nursing mother with just one skin of water traveled 1,500 kilometers on foot across a harsh desert with her infant child? There is no biblical or historical evidence of this journey at all. So without any evidence, why should I believe this when it makes zero logical sense? It would be more believable if it was actually a possible journey. And when it comes to the Kaaba, all evidence points to it being built by pagans, not by Abraham. Historical records prior to Islam consistently describe it as a pagan shrine housing multiple idols. Early Islamic sources themselves acknowledge this as well. There is no mention in the Hebrew Bible, no early Jewish tradition, and no archaeological evidence connecting Abraham to its construction. And pre-Islamic Arabia actually had multiple cube-like shrines and sacred stones, not just the Kaaba and Mecca. Greek and Roman writers like Diodorus even mention Arabian sacred temples with revered stones way before Islam. So it's honestly baffling to me that Muslims are so hyper-skeptical of the Bible, which has more evidence of preservation than most ancient texts, yet they accept the Abraham-Ishmael-Kaaba narrative without blinking. It honestly just screams blind faith. If you're Muslim, I'm telling you this because I love and care about you. True love involves honesty. Everything you do when you go to Mecca for Hajj is exactly what the Arab pagans used to do. They would walk in circles around the Kaaba, kiss the black stone, run between Safa and Marwa hills, do animal sacrifices during pilgrimage, had sacred months in which warfare was forbidden, entered a consecrated state similar to Ihram, and chant invocations. These are the exact same things that all Muslims do today when they go to Mecca. Islamic religious practices are just pagan idol worship under the guise of monotheism. You may believe that you're worshiping the one true God, but the Bible says in 1 John 2:23, "No one who denies the Son has the Father, but whoever acknowledges the Son has the Father also." And the verse before that says that he who denies the Father and the Son is an antichrist. So why do you think that the Quran is so adamant about saying that Jesus is not the Son of God and that Allah is not a father to anyone? People think that something has to be obviously evil to be from Satan, but he's smarter than that. He'll promote charity, prayer, and he'll even talk badly about himself, as long as he keeps you from Jesus. He's not after your sin, he's after your salvation. Jesus loves you, and he's waiting for you.
Hey, yo, so I asked the Israelites to prove that they were Israelites through the DNA, and they went quiet on it. You know, what a DNA test to show that your bloodline goes back to the Israelites of the Bible. Why y'all so quiet? I hadn't heard nothing. Because y'all was blowing my little video up, telling me I'm stupid and dumb. But when I start asking about the DNA test, y'all done got mighty quiet on your boy. I'm just saying, I'm not saying that you're not a bloodline Israelite. All I asked was, let me see the DNA test. That's all. Genetic testing, let me see something. Because you're hiding. Come on back outside. Come on back outside and play.
Now let me say something right quick. I think back on the African American people in America. I think how that they were taken against their wills, put in the belly of ships, brought over here, beat, cussed. Many of them died in the guts of those ships, thrown overboard. They were pulled from families over there. You ain't never heard a gut-wrenching song. Do you hear a black person sing one of those old black Negro spirituals? Nobody knows. I can't sing it like that, see, because I hadn't experienced what they be. When you've experienced hell, it comes out of the voice. I said, when you experience hell, it comes out of the voice. If you're one of those people that you got problem with black people or whatever, you better shut your mouth, because they're God's people. You better hear what I'm saying to you. You better shut your white mouth. You better shut your white mouth. I'm not kidding you. I know some of you was raised in the deep South, and you was raised by prejudiced people and bigoted people. You better get that out of your system. You better get it out of your system. It'll cause you to suffer right along with those masters. It'll cause you to suffer right along with them. These are God's people. And I know that there's wicked in white races and wicked in black races and all that. I'm not justifying none of that stuff. I'm just saying God knows what happened to the black race. He knows how they wound up over here, and God is going to reimburse the black people for all their trouble and all their labor. You watch what I tell you.
I'm curious, is there any evidence that Abraham actually existed other than the Bible? No, there isn't. The stories in the Bible or the Torah cannot be used as evidence. They can, but it's just really shitty evidence. There's nothing scientific about it. And biblical scholars like Dan McClellan on this app disagree with you. Not on this point, which was not the point that I made at all. In fact, this is a straw man response to my response to you. Because I don't care, and I didn't try to make this point. But what I do care about is science. And the genomes do not agree with you. Scientific research into this does not concur with what you're saying, and neither does all of scholarly consensus. All? Come on, man. I get what you're trying to do, but it's just not true.
The land is ours because it's an inheritance, and we are the only biological descendants of Abraham still intact today. So the land is ours by inheritance, which means it's ours whether we want it or not. An inheritance happens automatically. Also, if it's an inheritance, I can't give it away. I can't sell it. I can't make a gift out of it to someone else because it belongs to my children, to my grandchildren, and to my great-grandchildren who haven't been born yet. How can I give their land away? That would resolve all the conflict. There would be no further question as to whose land it is. There would be no discussion and no talk about sharing or parsing it out, giving away parts, two-state solution. Not possible. It hasn't been possible for all of history. The Babylonians conquered the land, but it never became theirs. The Romans conquered it, it was never theirs. The Persians conquered it, it was never theirs. And the Ottomans and the British, it never became anything other than the Holy Land promised to the children of Abraham as an inheritance. If we just make that clear to the world, all the tension, all the discussion would be over. In fact, the true religious Muslims will take down the mosque so that we can rebuild the third temple.
Funny enough, this is one of the most difficult questions that has been asked, and for all those who've been asking to know the history, who are the owners, how long have we existed as a being, I think this question goes to you. Do you think a DNA test will solve this? Because this is a mystery, and adding religious activities to it doesn't change the fact that these are people that has been blessed naturally or been gifted naturally by birth or by lineage or by belief. So I don't know. What are your thoughts? Share your thoughts below and let's have a decent conversation, respectful conversation. And original credit to every creator whose video will be used for this beautiful illustration. Join the trend. Join the conversation. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share so you can see our video again and support us for what we're doing, sharing our thoughts and opinion on what's happening in our society today. Peace.